Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classics and Non-Classics. This is 1288 and Doubleshot number 1182. I got two Daredevil trades from the current run of the title. Who is the writer of the book? Zdarsky. Yep, we have the very first two volumes of the series. We have No Fear and No Devils, Only God. These two trades collect the first 10 issues of this run. Yeah, that's one thing I did notice though, basically immediately when I look at these trades, like, really? Only 5 issues? Like, wait, did Marvel in a way copy what the Immortal Hulk trades were doing? We're printing 5 issues in each trade for like no reason at all. Now, in the case of this volume here, now, this comes right after a mini-series known as The Man Without Fear, The Death of Daredevil, which is basically the continuation of what happened after Charles Shaw wrapped up his run for the book. Yep, this is a brand new writer, and this is one thing also this run has in common with the Mark Waid run. We have a mini-series by a writer who is not the writer of the main book. It's a completely different writer. Now, this is written by Zdarsky, a guy known for being very humorous, and a guy who is almost a lot of his titles, with the exception of one part of this, tend to get quickly cancelled after a very short period of time. Series like Star-Lord, Howard the Duck. Yeah, that got cancelled after barely being around, well, the second volume for his run, lasting for like 11 issues, overall about 16 issues. This one's still going, it's like, okay, barely any humor in here. It's like, okay, apparently humor titles that he's written tend to get quickly canceled. While this book is barely any humor in it, there's nothing really funny in here at all. Okay, now the story for these issues are this. Daredevil is framed for a murder he didn't commit. So, Matt Murdock has to give up being Daredevil for quite a while and declare him dead. So, the series is called Daredevil, and the man doesn't want to put on this damn costume. Whatever. And by issue 3, we do have debut of one new character, Cole North. He is a detective who's in pretty much almost every single issue of this run. And here are your supporting characters. Well, Gil, who else is in this title? Why, the Kingpin? Well, actually, it's Mayor Fisk. And he is in every issue. I'm like, really? What is this, a Daredevil Netflix show? We have to keep coming back and forth between Daredevil and Wilson Fisk? Yep. It's almost like Zdarsky was told to write this way. They have the book heavily focused on basically 2 primary characters in every issue. Though sometimes basically it will give Cole North some spotlight. Mostly you have 3 stars in this book. Daredevil himself, Wilson Fisk, and Cole North. That's it. Cole North is an original character Zdarsky created, who's an interesting character. He starts out, he's a transfer from Chicago. Yes, a Chicago character. I'm like, wow, that's the first time in quite a while. A character came over from Chicago coming to New York to be a supporting character in a book. I'm like, doesn't sound so very familiar. Yes, Michelle Gonzalez from the Amazing Spider-Man book, who came out during that period of time where the book was coming out 3 times a month, and she was a supporting character. She's also from Chicago, though she's a lawyer, not a frickin' police officer. Well, he's a detective. So, oh yeah, and by the way, guess who makes a guest star appearance in issue 3? The frickin' Punisher. Yes, the Punisher is in here. Because of course he is. Because Punisher and Daredevil don't like each other. So they have these two just have themselves another round of fighting. Yes. I'm not kidding about that. That's seriously the deal with this thing. And like there's also been a flashback to his childhood. I'm like, okay. Like, I don't know if the writing style of this book was Zdarsky's idea or was his editor's idea. Because you read this, it has a very similar feel to the Daredevil Netflix show. because the switch between two characters. Now, there's no Karen Page. She's nowhere in this book. And here's something quite strange, though. Foggy Nelson's in here, and he's barely in this book. I'm like, really? And you can barely tell it's because how dark the artwork is. Yes, if you're curious, though, about the interior artwork, like, the artwork for this trade here, No Fear, this is done by Marco Calito. Yes, the cover art is done by Julian Tedesco. That's what is the artwork in here. The artwork is not bad per se. It's actually pretty good. This is, of course, the flashback artwork. Yeah, it's actually pretty good artwork. I gotta admit, they chose a good artist in the book. But it seems as though when we cut the present day, it seems as though we have to have the whole setting set like at night, really pitch black, for reasons I have no idea why. Why is the Punisher here? Just to mess with Daredevil's head. Yep, that's just a bit. Mm-hmm. I think it's an issue. We also get our appearance by a character that, well, I guess is not that surprising he appeared in here. Well, probably because Chip Zdarsky previously wrote him as a long-running title. Namely, that Spider-Man is here. Yes, Spider-Man is an occasional recurring character in this book. I'm like, that is not a bad idea. I like the idea, the fact that Spider-Man is an occasional recurring character in this book. I mean, he appears several times throughout this font. He appears in this book. He appears like a couple times in these issues here. He also appears like a couple times even in the next set of issues, which that is really smart on Chip Zdarsky to do. Two reasons. One, Spider-Man's longtime friendship with Daredevil, so of course an occasional appearance in this book. And two, Chip Zdarsky has written the character before, so he at least has experience writing him. Though he does, in fact, for him, he does keep his snappy humor. I will discuss more about that when I discuss Volume 3. But in the case of this particular book itself, it's interesting to say the least. I mean, the story itself is quite interesting for what it is. I'm going to give the start of this book basically I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Now, in the case of this book here, now, Wilson Fisk is still technically the mayor. He does his own mayoral stuff. And at one point, he meets up with, I think it's in this book or the following book, he meets up with several crime bosses. And one of them happens to be the Owl. Yes, the Owl is in here. Because, of course, the Owl is in here. For two reasons. He's a longtime Daredevil villain. And two, he's awesome. And I think Chip Zdarsky just loves writing this character. Yep. So, in these issues, Matt Murdock has abandoned his costume. He's no longer Daredevil. He's not even taking that name. So, he's pretty much basically beating up criminals and acting very recklessly. Yes, all because Daredevil apparently tried... we had Daredevil almost die at the end of Charles Schultz's run. Because, of course, Charles Schultz tried to kill off a character he had a good time writing, from what I can tell. Yeah, so basically they have this volume end with Daredevil running into Elektra. I'm like, that's interesting. He's also investigating, aside from the fact he's fighting crime basically in street clothes. He also, well, apparently, he doesn't fight. Here's something interesting, though. Despite the fact we actually have the subject Will Smith in here, I don't think he ever really interacts with Matt Murdock at all. Nope. Also, this book has a very weird ending to it. Like, end of issue 9, we apparently have Matt Murdock and this woman named Mindy, who is married, who is a daughter of a crime boss, and they have a one-night stand. And the very next issue in this book is like, oh, we have completely different artists on here. Yes, they changed artists in this book for some reason. I have no idea why. Yeah, the main artist of these issues is Lit Kermer Sarima, who her is basically on issue 10. Now, the thing with issue 10, it's a heavy focus on Cold North, where apparently ends up fighting his own precinct, because a lot of them basically on the take. Yep. So basically, it's almost kind of like maybe that, well, and this is just my personal guess, when it comes to this book. Why in the world did Zdarsky have Electro in issue 10? Because he was not liking his own direction where he was taking the book. So he's like, screw it, I'm basically having Daredevil retrain himself. But, second volume, pretty good. Slight improvements over the first volume, because at least I have a pretty good idea where we're going here. Especially with Elektra. And I get this book roughly a 9.5 out of 10. It's actually a pretty good book, all things considered. Yes. Yep, so that's it for this particular review. Yeah, not much else to say about these two trades. Next two, oh yes, I have more to talk about, of course. Because next Comic Corner is discussing another Daredevil trade, plus Old Man Logan. Yep. See you next video. Bye.